How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji. Welcome to another episode of On the Line. Guys, I had a great question sent my way. Ganji, how do you deal with a disrespectful inmate? It's a great question. I have an experience that I would like to share with you, a story that I feel could apply to most situations when dealing with a disrespectful inmate. But I want you guys to know that the story I'm going to share with you today is focused on what I believe is your perception of authority. Guys, in corrections, we can't expect the uniform to carry that perception of authority. We do at all times. And how we do that is by having control of ourselves. If we control ourselves through all situations, we build a level of credibility, a level of trust, a level of confidence, both inwards and outwards. And the story I'm going to share relates to that perception of authority, building that confidence, that trust. So when I was a new boot, I remember dealing with this inmate who would question every directive I gave her. It was more as that she was challenging every time I gave her a directive. And for me, being a new boot, I wanted 100% obedience with no feedback. I gave you a directive. I wanted that directive followed. Now, mind you, as I'm giving her the directive, she would kind of be a little bit disrespectful. She would question it, but she was still getting it done. And now, mind you, this was in a public area, so other inmates could witness this interaction between me and her. The inmates were witnessing how she reacts to the directives I'm giving her, but they're also looking at me, how I'm reacting to what she is doing about the directives I'm giving her. So we would have these back and forths multiple times a day, multiple times a week. And here I am thinking I'm solving something, because in the end, we would go back and forth, but she was still getting it done. But I would just allow her to get to me, allow her to push my buttons. I would give her a directive and she would say something and walk away, and then I would have to get the last word in. And this wasn't even about the directive anymore. This was just more about me getting the last word. But she was disrespectful in how she was carrying it out. But she was still carrying it out. So I had a senior officer. He was watching me have this interaction with her. So he calls me into the office and he says, "Yo, G, how you think you're handling that?" So I think I'm doing good. You know, we may be having this back and forth, but she's getting it done. He goes, "Wasn't she getting it done before you had the back and forth?" It's like, "Yeah, but she's questioning my authority. I'm giving her this directive and she's talking back, and, you know, I'm making it known that I run this unit. I have the authority." And he goes, "I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Take it if you will." I said, "Okay." 3 things. Control yourself, control the environment, and then you'll have your true authority over that individual. So the next day, I listened to what he said, because something in me knew that was true, that was correct, because I didn't like doing this every day with this inmate. So I'm very open to advice. Plus, it came from a senior officer. They knew their stuff. So I'm always open to listen to someone with more experience than myself. So I called the inmate into the office. I said, "What's going on?" It was like the inmate was like a breath of fresh air. "Whew, Ganji, I don't want to keep doing this." I said, "Well, neither do I." She goes, "Ganji, but your approach, you're doing it in front of the other inmates. And then we're having a back and forth and they're watching me." And I'm thinking to myself, I get it. No control of the environment here. You have these inmates that are supporting the behaviors that's opposite in the direction I want this inmate to go. So she's being reinforced by her peers. So now we're having a back and forth, and the more I escalate it, because I was technically escalating it, she's going to match it. Not because she wanted to, but because the inmates would probably expect that from her. And I'll think of it from my perspective. Maybe I was doing the same thing. Because I'm thinking, like, if she questions my authority, how are the other inmates going to see me? How are my peers going to see me? So we had this one-on-one. I told her what my expectations were, and she was a totally different inmate. Dealing with this inmate one-on-one was not the same inmate that was out there with that group. So I learned that day having that dialogue, having that level of control of myself, kind of now removes the emotion behind it all, lets me see the environment for what it is. And then once I see the environment, I start to see the obstacles in the way of what I need to get done. And then once I'm able to have that control over the environment, but first with myself, then the environment, now I'm able to have control over this individual. So the advice here was I pulled the inmate aside after I had control of myself, figured out what was going on, realized it was the environment that was motivating the negative behavior, and she was a totally different individual. All I had to do was pull the inmate aside, away from her peers, away from the individuals that were supporting that behavior. And believe it or not, guys, the respect carried over, because the next day, we didn't argue or nothing. Can you get this done? She got it done. We built a rapport when we were taken away from an environment that wasn't allowing that rapport to happen. So again, if you're having a disrespectful inmate, if given a chance and you can safely do it, talk to the inmate one-on-one, or maybe with a supervisor present, but definitely when the inmate's not in front of their peers. You find that you get yourself a whole different inmate when you're dealing with them on a one-on-one basis, as opposed to them being surrounded by those who would actually motivate the wrong behavior. Kind of makes it fruitless, actually, when you're trying to motivate the right behavior amongst people who just don't want that to happen. As always, guys, the show is on the line. Don't forget, subscribe to this channel. Guardian RFID has got great information. Get a chance, check out Terror Talk, too. We provide some good information as well. But as always, guys, stay safe.